This fellow talked about predictions. Okay, and let's find out what he's got to say. Let me first say the following. He believes that predictions are part of the scientific method. And here, as you know, we say that predictions have absolutely nothing to do with the scientific method. Scientists are not astrologers or palm readers. We don't do that kind of work. It's not in our it's not in our job description. Okay, so we don't do predictions. So how did predictions become part of the scientific method? What is the notion that these people have? Where did they get these ideas? Okay, so let me put them on. This is going to be our science critic, and let me give me a second here. Okay. And here goes. Listen carefully to what we're trying to figure out here. Here goes. The issue to be addressed in this rebuttal is, are predictions a part of science?
Are predictions a part of science? And clearly, they are a part of science. If someone says you're going to get a phone call within 4 minutes, and you get a phone call within 4 minutes, then you might assume that they have some kind of knowledge as to why you're getting the phone call. Yes, it could be a lucky guess, but the more information they provide about it, the more likely they have some knowledge. Like if they say, oh, Tom is going to ring you in 4 minutes, and then Tom does ring you in 4 minutes, that is very unlikely that they just guessed that. However, if someone says you're going to get a phone call next year, and you do get a phone call next year, then it doesn't take a genius to work out that the likelihood was that you were just going to get a phone call regardless of whether they knew anything about it or not.
Okay, so what's the issue there? Okay, where do we start? There's so many things wrong with what he said. And again, it's because they have this notion that astrology is part of science, okay? That they do predictions in science. We don't do those. We don't do prophecy, palm reading, none of those things in science. So you can see his notion of it. He says, if you receive a call within 4 minutes after the prediction, looks like he knew something, but if you receive a call next year, anytime during the year, he says that's not a prediction because more than likely you would have received one anyways. Okay, these are the notions these people have. Where do we start? Well, we start how predictions entered the scientific method. And where do you think they came from? Well, they came from math. Okay, they didn't come from physics, they came from mathematics. Here it is. Okay, a prediction without more, these are my statements, okay? Prediction without more is just a description. That's all a prediction is. You haven't explained anything. If you say there's going to be an eclipse tomorrow at 2 o'clock and it happens, so far you haven't explained why or, how come. All you told me is what's going to happen. That's only a description. So far all you got is a description. If the astrologer can explain, right, the cause that underlies what is going to happen, then he has no choice but to draw upon his experience. When you explain something, like if you can explain why, the cause, the mechanism that causes an eclipse, then you're not talking about the future. Now you're talking about the past. You're not making a prediction. Now you're explaining what something from your experience. You've already had some exposure to whatever happened. So if you know something about eclipses, okay, and one example that comes to mind, okay, is what is this? In Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and that was a book by Mark Twain. And he's got this, one of the first guys who talked about time travel, by the way. In fact, it probably is the first book. I don't know. But he goes into the past. This Connecticut Yankee, he goes into the past, and he knows that on such and such date, there's going to be an eclipse. And he knows why, because the moon is going to interfere between the sun and the earth. And so, the people in those days, they have no idea what causes eclipses. And he already predicts it. He says, look, in the next few minutes, there's going to be an eclipse. And all the people go, ooh, ah. He knows why, because he knows that at that moment in time, there was going to be a moon moving between the sun and the earth. And why? Because he went to the past. You got to travel to the past in order to explain. Okay, you have to have some experience with eclipses, for example, right? And so it says experience, past. And explain, you can only explain what? A consummated event. Okay? Science is about explaining, about the past only. We have to explain in science, how did something happen, by what mechanism? That's what science is. But to describe and says there's going to be an eclipse tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and you don't say more than that, you haven't explained anything. All you did was give a description, and that's all a prediction is, without more. Okay, without more. If you can explain what's going to happen, that's a different story, because now you're talking about the explanation, and now about the prediction. Okay, explanation of a prediction is different than the prediction, which is just a description. That's what I'm saying here. Okay, here we have, here you have an example. Okay, mathematics describes, physics explains. You see a magician on stage. He cuts the lady in half. Okay, so you ask the mathematician next to you, hey, what happened? How did that happen? And he said, well, look, here we have x equals AB plus C, where A is the head, B is the torso, and C is the legs. The guy used 20 strokes of the saw, 10 seconds, cut it in 2 pieces, curtains closed, curtains open, and the lady comes out alive. That's a mathematician talking. Now here's the physicist talking. Here's a scientist, okay? He wants to know how the trick was done. How did the magician do the trick? So here's 3 theories. The first one, body is under the stage. You see the picture there? Okay, the body of the girl is under the stage. Theory number 2, 2 girls in the box. There's 2 boxes. One girl's in one box, the other one in the other. You can see the head of one and the shoes of the legs of the other. So that's another way of doing the trick. That's another theory that physicists might propose. Here's a third theory. One girl under the other. Okay, so you can see that one's under the stage. And so you cut only up to the stage, so you're not cutting the girl. It's just the position of the girls, how they trick you. So these are the mechanisms. These are the causes. This is how he did the trick. But to say that the magician just sawed the girl in 20 strokes in 10 seconds in 2 pieces, that's not science. That's just what happened on stage. Okay? So we have to distinguish a description from an explanation, and a prediction is nothing but a description. Okay? So here we have it. Okay? Math can only describe. Math has no power or authority to explain. If I tell you that this pencil falls to the floor at 9.8 meters per second squared, I'm giving you an explanation. I just tell you that's what's going to happen. It's going to fall in 1/10 of a second or whatever. I can tell you all that. Yeah, you can do that. But what you cannot tell me yet with mathematics, right? You cannot tell me what caused it to go to the floor. Was it some particles pushing the pencil downwards? Was it something pulling it from the earth, from the center of the earth? That's an explanation. I want to know the mechanism. That's physics. It is thus that science has become a synonym of math. Okay? Because that's all that math can do. The mathematicians are the ones who took over physics. They call themselves mathematical, quotations on this, physicists, right? And so all they're doing is math. They're doing equations. They're describing things and no more. And then they give you the most irrational physical interpretation they can come up with. Warp space. That's why the pencil fell to the floor, right? And so science has become a discipline that is identified with description, meaning what? Prediction. Genuine science is explanation.